When I was a child, one of my favorite memories was the trips I used to take with my grandfather to the village. He had an old red car that seemed to be as ancient as time itself. Every summer, we would drive to the village, the wind rushing through the open windows as we sang along to the radio. I always felt like we were going on a grand adventure. Once we arrived, the first thing we would do was go fishing by the small creek near the village. My grandfather would patiently teach me how to cast the line, while I would daydream about catching a giant fish. Sometimes I'd get so excited that I'd forget to keep the line still, and the fish would always get away. After fishing, we'd set up a grill and enjoy a small barbecue. One memorable day, I decided to try riding one of the horses in the village. It was a beautiful, strong mare, and I was so proud to be on her back. But as we rode near the creek, I lost my balance and fell into the shallow water. I got soaked and cold, and before long, I felt myself getting sick. Despite feeling unwell, my grandfather wrapped me in a warm blanket and let me rest in the car as we drove back home. I may have gotten sick, but that day, the adventures with my grandfather were worth it all. When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, "Son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned?" He said, "Will you defeat them, your demons, and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day, I'll leave you a phantom to lead you in the summer to join the Black Parade." One Christmas Eve, I was determined to catch Santa in the act. I stayed awake as long as I could, hiding behind the couch with a blanket and a flashlight. Around midnight, I heard shuffling near the tree and peeked out to see my dad, dressed in a red suit, carefully placing presents under the tree. I gasped, and he froze, caught with a Santa hat crooked on his head and cookies in hand. He tried to laugh it off, saying he was helping Santa because the reindeer got stuck in traffic. I nodded seriously, but inside, I knew I'd uncovered the truth. I was sitting with my friends in the university cafeteria and had gotten a drink. While I was going back to my friends, there was a mayonnaise packet on the ground. When I stepped on it, it exploded, and it splattered all over the person next to me. The whole place was cracking up with laughter. When Tim was little, Saturdays meant trips to the attic with his dad. The attic was a dusty, forgotten world of old things. Faded boxes, worn-out books, and most importantly, a box of toys. One afternoon, Tim found a box pushed far back in a corner. He tugged it down with his dad's help, and inside, he uncovered old action figures, wooden cars, and a tiny robot that his dad used to play with. "These were mine when I was your age," his dad said, smiling. "I spent hours with these." Tim held the robot in his hands. "Do you think it still works?" His dad laughed. "Only one way to find out." Tim pressed a button on the robot, and to his surprise, its arms started to move. He giggled, holding it up like it was alive. "It's like magic!" His dad sat down next to him, watching with a soft smile. "I used to think the same thing. Funny how toys change, but the fun never really does." Tim looked up at his dad, realizing how much they shared, even across the years. "Can I keep playing with it?" "Of course," his dad said, ruffling his hair. "But one day, you'll pass it on to someone else." Tim nodded, already imagining a day far in the future when he'd share these toys with his own kids. For now, though, he was just happy to play, right there, in the attic, beside his dad. Once upon a time, in a quaint village nestled between rolling hills and a shimmering lake, lived a young girl named Lily. Lily had a vivid imagination and loved to explore the enchanted forest that bordered her village. One sunny afternoon, while wandering through the forest, she stumbled upon a hidden path lined with glowing flowers. Intrigued, she followed the path and soon found herself in a magical glade where the air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and the soft hum of fairy wings. In the center of the glade stood a magnificent tree with golden leaves that sparkled in the sunlight. As Lily approached, she noticed a small door at the base of the tree. Curiosity piqued, she gently knocked, and to her amazement, the door swung open to reveal a tiny fairy named Alara. Alara welcomed Lily with a warm smile and invited her inside. The interior of the tree was a cozy, enchanting space filled with twinkling lights and shelves lined with ancient books and potions. Alara explained that the tree was a portal to a realm where dreams came true and adventures awaited. Lily spent the rest of the day exploring this wondrous realm with Alara, meeting talking animals and discovering hidden treasures. As the sun began to set, Alara led Lily back to the glade and gifted her a shimmering pendant as a token of their friendship. With a promise to return, Lily made her way back home, her heart brimming with joy and wonder. From that day on, every time she wore the pendant, she was reminded of the magical adventure and the special bond she shared with her fairy friend. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by whispering forests and rolling hills, there lived a boy named Vince who believed that the stars could hear his wishes. Every night, he would climb to the top of the hill behind his cottage, a steep climb that would leave his legs aching but his heart racing with excitement. The hill was crowned with an ancient oak tree, whose gnarled branches seemed to stretch across the sky like the arms of a sleeping giant. On nights when the moon was full, Vince would sit beneath the oak, close his eyes, and speak his wishes out loud, hoping the stars would take note. "I wish to see the world beyond the hills," he would say, "to find the land where dreams walk in daylight and dragons still soar." One evening, as the silver moon cast a soft glow over the valley, something extraordinary happened. Vince's voice, a whisper carried by the wind, reached the ears of a passing star. It flickered and danced, growing brighter until it detached from the sky and floated down to him, settling at the tips of his outstretched fingers. "Vince," the star spoke, its voice like the sound of chimes, "your wish has been heard, and the world you seek is closer than you think." With a sudden shimmer, the ground beneath him shifted, and the oak tree's branches unraveled like the pages of an ancient book, revealing a hidden door to another world. Beyond the door lay fields of glittering flowers, rivers that sparkled like liquid stardust, and creatures of wonder and whimsy, griffins with feathers that changed color, and unicorns whose manes were woven from moonlight. Vince stepped through the door, his heart full of excitement, knowing that his adventure had only just begun. It was a hot summer's day. A thirsty crow flew into a village searching for some water to drink. He flew over houses, fields, and trees, but he could not find any water. After a long time, he came across a farm. Under one of the trees on the farm was a pot of water. There was very little water in the pot. The crow tried to reach the water, but he was not able to do so, as the neck of the pot was very narrow. He then tried to push the pot down for the flow out, but the pot was too heavy for him. The crow looked around. He saw some pebbles. An idea struck in his mind. He picked up the pebbles one by one and dropped them into the pot. As he dropped the pebbles into the pot, the water came up. Soon it was high enough for him to drink. He drank the water. He flew away happily. I woke, my breath appearing in the air. "It's Christmas," I remembered. Jumping out of my bed, I rushed to the door. Swinging it open, I hopped down the stairs to be greeted by the biggest pile of gifts that I had ever seen. But it was 6 a.m. My parents would not be awake for another hour. I sat on the sofa waiting patiently. I scanned every inch of that beautiful pile. Gifts with stickers, gifts with bows. 10 minutes had passed. I laid my head on the pillow next to me and closed my eyes. I started imagining what was inside each gift. "Jamie, wake up! It's Christmas!" shouted my father in jeer. He passed me a large rectangular present. I savagely ripped the wrapping paper off the box to reveal a brand new gaming system, the Super Nintendo. In a small, candle-lit room filled with old scrolls and maps, young Aaron pored over tales of enchanted forests and mythical beasts. One evening, as the rain tapped on the window, a faint blue glow appeared in the corner of the room. Curious, Aaron approached, discovering an ancient, forgotten runestone she'd never seen before. The moment she touched it, her room transformed. The walls faded into towering trees, the floor turned to moss, and she was in the heart of the legendary Forest of Starlight. Eerie creatures watched her from the shadows, yet none seemed hostile. A gentle, whispering wind guided her steps deeper into the forest until she came upon a silver tree with glistening fruit. With one bite, she felt knowledge and strength flow through her. The forest disappeared, and Erin found herself back in her room, the glow gone, but her heart forever changed by the magical journey. I have to think of my favorite childhood memory because there are so many. I think I started meeting with my family to join the marching band in primary school. I was very cowardly and shy at first. Somehow I participated in the auditions and I won. At first I started with a wind instrument, of course I failed, and they recommended me to use drums. So I bought a drum and joined the team. One of the worst events that could happen during my training was that I broke my foot. And while I continued to participate in studies like this, one day, while I was training with other schools, the head officer called me in front of all the schools to give rhythm. I was so scared and excited that he chose me, even though there were many students who were more experienced than me. I gave beats to all 5 different schools, and soon we had our show in the stadium. When I was a child, I had a secret ritual. Every day after lunch, I'd sneak away to the rooftop with a book tucked under my arm. While others took their naps, I climbed up the rickety ladder to the flat, sun-drenched roof. There, beneath the wide blue sky, I'd open my book and sink into a world far beyond the humdrum of daily life. One afternoon, lost in a tale about enchanted forests and secret kingdoms, I felt my eyelids grow heavy. The words began to blur, their shapes twisting into strange new patterns. I dozed off, drifting somewhere between the real world and the one I'd been reading about. In my dream, the rooftop transformed. The sunlight softened into a golden glow, and vines crept up the walls, weaving themselves into an archway. I stepped through it and found myself in a mossy forest, with trees so tall their branches seemed to brush the clouds. Birds with vibrant feathers flitted past, singing songs I'd never heard before. I wandered deeper into the woods, feeling the soft crunch of leaves underfoot and the cool, earthy scent of moss and soil. Suddenly, a glimmer caught my eye, a small silver feather on the ground. I reached for it, marveling at its iridescent glow. As I held it, a soft breeze rustled the leaves, and I felt myself drifting again, this time back to the rooftop. When I opened my eyes, the sun was lower in the sky, and my book lay beside me. I sat up, stretching and smiling at the memory of the dream. But as I turned to go back inside, I noticed something. Clutched in my hand was a small silver feather, warm from the sun. I blinked, staring at it in wonder. Had it all been real? When I was a child, my parents said that putting a broken, fallen tooth under the pillow. The following day, it will be replaced with cash by a tooth fairy. I did what my parents said, and the morning came. I woke up and checked the thing under my pillow. I got so disappointed that I started to not believe in what others said and became atheist. When I was a child, we used to go to Trabzon with my family. In this place, with its unique natural beauties, we ate fresh fruits and vegetables every day. Anyway, among my daily activities here was serving the butterflies I caught to the big spiders. Another day, while I was throwing the butterfly I caught into the spider web, the butterfly started flapping its wings desperately. At that time, I got as close as possible so that I could see every detail clearly. At that moment, the butterfly escaped from the spider's web somehow, and while it was flying towards me, the spider in the web jumped on me at the same time. The butterfly somehow escaped, but the spider stuck to me, and I was so scared that I almost fainted. After this incident, I have arachnophobia. When I was a child, my little brother, Wired, and I would go to the internet cafe on weekends to play Resident Evil. Another weekend, while I was on the road, I looked at the sky and noticed that there was a full moon above. Being impressed by a movie I had watched before, I turned to my brother and asked if werewolves wouldn't get in our way, right? My brother told me, "Don't talk nonsense. Such things are not real." But I was not very happy with the answer I got. So we started arguing, and the argument ended at home because we couldn't go to the internet cafe. We were both upset because we couldn't play Resident Evil that night. When I was a child, the world seemed full of mystery and adventure. I remember one summer afternoon when I decided to build a fort in the woods behind my house. Armed with nothing but a few old blankets, some string, and an ambitious imagination, I set out to create the perfect hideout. The woods were quiet, with only the rustling of leaves in the breeze. I found a small grove of trees, their branches low and perfect for draping the blankets over. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. I worked for what felt like hours, though I'm sure it was only a few minutes, tying the blankets together and securing them to the trees with string. When it was finally done, I crawled inside, feeling like the king of my own little world. It wasn't much, a makeshift shelter really, but to me, it was a castle, a secret hideout where only I could go. I spent the rest of the afternoon there, imagining all kinds of adventures, like being a pirate on the high seas or a treasure hunter exploring uncharted lands. As the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow over everything, I realized that the best part wasn't the fort itself, but the way it made me feel, free, creative, and full of possibility. And even now, when I think back to that day, I remember it not just as a childhood memory, but as a moment that helped shape the way I see the world, full of endless possibilities waiting to be discovered.